All right, it's the last day of the year. And I'm going to go ahead and do a reading that really impacted me at the end of last year that I don't think I ever shared on here, but I realize impacted me deeply and encapsulated the energy and intention of my year. And I'm so grateful because it gave me my voice back in a very powerful, important way. Anyway, this is Bob Goff. He's amazing. If you haven't checked him out, check him out. He's one of the few people I've ever met where I'm like, this person's awake. He's weird. He's different. He comes from a Christian basis, but in such a fantastic way. Like, he gets it. And this is just a little short story. And it's called The Reach. I used to be afraid of failing at something that really mattered to me, but now I'm more afraid of succeeding at things that don't matter. That line got my attention because it had words that it was able to give a feeling of mine, words that I had not been able to find the words for, of something that had caused me to pause for a little while. I was afraid of succeeding at things that didn't matter because I had, and I didn't want to do that anymore. My first real job was at Lair's Greenhouse Restaurant. It was a fantastic glass building designed to look like an arboretum. Arboretum. It was the crystal cathedral of fine dining. Each table was set inside its own wonderfully ornate white gazebo. And there were dozens of them. The crystal was perfect, the china was delicate, and the waiters were coiffed and formal in their black tuxedos, cummerbunds, and bow ties. When I applied to work at Lair's, I imagined how great I would look in a tux. How I would memorize the menu and make every prom date or business dinner flawless. I also imagined myself counting my pile of money from generous tips. Now, in order to become a waiter at Lair's Greenhouse, I had to start as a busboy and work my way up. I did pretty well, I guess, but then again, how can you screw up collecting dirty dishes? It was hard work, but the thought of being a waiter someday made it all worth it. As a busboy, I learned that tables enveloped in white gazebos while creating a stunning atmosphere make for some tight and hard-to-maneuver situations. By the time I got to the tables to pick up the dishes, everyone would be gone, and I wondered how the waiters navigated that reach. On my 1-year anniversary, the maitre d' pulled me aside and said I could buy my tuxedo and become a waiter. I was at the tuxedo shop the next morning as soon as it opened. When opening night came for me and I had my shift as a waiter, I was so excited I could barely eat. I sprinted from my small apartment and grabbed some quick Mexican food around the corner because they wouldn't let us eat the food at the restaurant. I rushed back and slipped on my tuxedo for the first time since trying it on in the store. The tuxedo was expensive, but I knew I'd earn enough tips over the next month or two to pay for it. I put down half of the money when I bought it and agreed to pay off the rest in payments from my new waiter job. I intentionally lingered around the apartment complex where I lived just long enough for everyone living near me to see that I indeed had a tuxedo with a ruffled shirt. I left it to their imagination to figure out how special I was. I hopped into my thrashed VW Bug, drove to the restaurant, and parked around the corner to make sure no one saw me pull up in a VW. I wanted to have that 007 My Other Cars and Aston Martin look. The night was cloudless. You could see the stars through the glass ceiling. Cinderella wouldn't have been out of place pulling up in our carriage. There were twinkle lights on the gazebos. It was like Christmas in July, and the whole restaurant had a new feel to me, like I'd been an understudy in a play and now was walking out on the big stage as a lead. The maitre d' escorted my first guest to one of the elegant gazebos in my zone. It looked like a wealthy doctor and his business guests. They were starched and tidy, and each guy actually looked like he could be the Surgeon General. The women looked like they had stepped off of the cover of Vogue. As soon as the men were settled, I put napkins in everybody's laps and gave them the speech I'd rehearsed a dozen times in my bathroom mirror while my toothpaste and deodorant listened. I told them about the many incredible choices they would have that evening, which would certainly include the best food, best service, and most remarkable dining experience of their lives. In a word, I promised that the evening would be flawless. I placed their orders and after a short time came to the gazebo with steaming plates. All seemed to be going well until the unthinkable happened. As I was making the big reach across the wide table, I felt this massive grumbling somewhere south of my stomach, down as deep as one could imagine. There was no time to react. At the pinnacle of my full extension across the table with a plate of prime rib, out came the most impressive and lengthy gassing you can ever imagine. I hardly had time to regret the Mexican food I'd eaten earlier. This was terrible in its own right, but what was more remarkable is that it went on forever. I could have sounded out the alphabet if I would have gotten my hands back there, and no amount of butt tightening would put an end to it. It's amazing, isn't it? Just when I guess it's amazing. As I finished my episode, looks of absolute shock from the guests came into focus. I think I heard a woman scream. It certainly caught the attention of the surrounding tables. A hushed silence descended on us all, and I just stood there, paralyzed, holding the prime rib high over the table. I didn't know what to say, and I was afraid that any movement might set off an aftershock. Finally, one of the men got up, threw the napkin I'd placed in his lap on the table, and walked straight to the maitre d'. With punishing accuracy, I saw him described what just went down, acting out my full extension as he stood on one foot and leaned over an imaginary table. The sounds he tried to recount lacked a certain bass tone and texture, but overall I think he got the general idea and duration right. I was fired on the spot. No kidding. With my cummerbund in one hand and bow tie in the other, I walked back to my VW bug with my head hung low. I sat in the front seat, took a deep breath, and wondered what I was supposed to feel at a time like this. On the one hand, I'd just destroyed a year's worth of work. I'd earned the waiter spot, playing in the minor leagues, bussing tables. And when I finally stepped up to the plate in the major leagues, I swung as hard as I could and hit the umpire in the back of the head. I don't know how I could have messed up any worse, to be honest, yet on the other hand, I had a story for the ages. A story I could someday tell my kids when they thought they had made a big mistake. I took in another deep breath and felt this huge grin spreading across my face. The grin was almost happening to me rather than me making it happen. As I drove home, I recounted the events from the last hour or two. I thought about my now useless tucks, the guests, the order, the infamous extension, the gasps, the screams, the firings. I can't lie. I knew even then it had indeed been an amazing, if not flawless, night. Forgive the background noise, it's a bunny. She's being ornery. My grandmother, Grandma Mary, and I want to point this out, this story and this next line are really what stuck with me and drove my entire year. Unbeknownst to me for a lot of it, but it was on my mind the whole time. My grandmother, Grandma Mary, used to tell me, "You're nothing until you've been fired once or twice." And it stuck with me because I hadn't been fired. And I knew she was pointing at something that I needed. She didn't give any disclaimers for how you got fired, so I assumed her adage still applied to me. For the next 6 months, I made payments on that tux until I dropped it off at Goodwill, and I never tried my hand at being a waiter again. The thing I love about God is he intentionally guides people into failure. He made us be born as little kids who can't walk or talk or even use a bathroom correctly. We have to be taught everything. All that learning takes time, and he made us so we are dependent on him, our parents, and each other. And I just want to say, it's weird to read this because I was thinking about this the other day. We had to take so much patience and time to learn to walk and move our bodies. We had to be so awkward, so willing to be a beginner. We forget. And we kind of think we're experts at everything now. We really struggle to go back to that, but we forget that every single skill you start with, like the first time you do it, you're going to be awkward. You're going to be new. You're going to be a beginner. So God taught us that, but then we kind of think we get out of it as adults. And it's like, no, he made us so we're dependent on him, on our parents and each other. But it's like that humbling process. The failure, the beginningness, that vulnerability draws us closer to him and to others. Because in it, it levels us. Like we begin to remember like everybody's journey, and it's okay to be messy and all these beautiful things. The whole thing is designed so we try again and again until we finally get it right. And the whole time, he is endlessly patient. Failure is just part of the process, and it's not just okay, it's better than okay. God doesn't want failure to shut us down. God didn't make it a 3 strikes and you're out sort of thing. It's more about how God helps us dust ourselves off so that we can swing for the fences again. I love that. And all of this without keeping a meticulous record of our screw-ups. And I get it, because I get it. Like, I've been through so much. I've been shredded and, blown up and pulverized. That's kind of how I feel. But I have been shown again and again, like, just dust yourself off, get up, keep going. And like, you can swing for the fences again. And you're going to be even smarter and better. And you're going to depend more on him. And all of this without keeping a meticulous record of our screw-ups. I found another job eventually. And eventually I lost that one too. But I lost it because I chose to that time, not because I was fired. And see, he's getting his power of choice back. Finding things and losing things is what the Bible is all about. God even seemed to encourage it. And we get so attached. We get so attached to things as our sense of self, our sense of identity, our sense of failure. And I'm so grateful I can say I got fired. And actually, I don't feel that as like a shame. That is such incredible growth. And I see it because I'm looking at it now through a lens of like, wow, this is getting my power back. That owned me. They say everything you want is on the other side of fear. And they also say there's nothing to fear but fear itself. But neither one of those things make any sense until you pass through your fears and realize what you wanted was on the other side. And so there was really nothing to fear but the idea of the fear thing itself. I was very afraid of that reality, of being fired, of being written up. It had never happened to me, and I needed it. I realized that year. So this year I thought I was going into it with intention of like, getting promotion and growing. And what it was actually about was I wanted to professionally grow. The Holy Spirit and God heard my actual ask. And I needed to actually be written up and fired to professionally grow. And I created it by being exposed to this story and sort of obsessing about it and realizing that this was something that I needed because it was a piece of freedom for me. You can't serve the other master until you're willing to walk through the fears of where the other one holds you. And fear of financial insecurity is a big one. And I've lost everything, right? I've been homeless and stuff, like advanced things or severe circumstances. And I get to let go of that. Who cares? I'm just throwing it out there, though, that those are things that exist for us until we see that I had to be willing to walk through that fear and say, no, I'm going to do the right thing in this scenario, which is what I did. And trust that the master I serve has got me. And he controls all the abundance anyway. And so I'm just going to walk through the fear that appears to be here. And as I did, yes, the circumstance is scary. Yes, it sucks. But as I did it, I knew I was getting a piece of myself back, that I was being moved through fear, and that I was learning to trust and walk on faith in a different way. And so it was exactly actually what I needed and what I wanted, even though it looked like the opposite of what my intention was this year. It paves the way for what I really want next year. And this is how God works with us, and works with us through failure, or putting us in scenarios where we realize we're putting ourselves in double binds or trying to be a square peg going into a round hole. Like, God designed us to be in environments that work with us and feel really good to us. And sometimes we get used to suffering and being uncomfortable because just the way it is, or what we have to do to support our family, or whatever's wrapped up in our lives. But if we're not happy and flourishing, then there's an additional journey. There's an additional gateway or lesson for us to walk through, right? God encourages us to lose things. And I think nobody wants to say I got fired. That's viewed very badly. But if I says like finding and losing things is what the Bible's all about, God encouraged it. Like, you got to be willing. Until you're willing to lose something, you don't know what you were willing to sell out to keep it. That's what it is. He talked about losing your job or even your life if you want to find it. It's true. It says in the Bible. He talked about losing your status to find real power. A lot of what my journey has been about too, the last few years. He showed, and I knew, but I don't know. I have this like idea, but I realize there's something bigger going on. And he shows that Jesus comes looking for us because people, like sheep, have a knack for getting lost. And when he finds us, we usually aren't dressed in a tux. Things can go wrong. Things that go wrong can shape us or scar us. I've had some things go well in my life and some things go not so well, just like you. And that's a key point. Things that go wrong can shape us or scar us. And you can do both, but how it impacts you matters. How you choose to use your life experiences and apply them matters. And that's why it's so good to stop and take time to reflect on 2024 and your intention this year and your intention for next year, and just pause and say, what am I really up to? Did I get what I wanted, or was there dissonance between my intention and my result? More have gone well than have gone poorly in my life, but I'm not trying to keep score because I have a different way I measure those things now. God finds us in our failures and our successes. And he says that while we used to think one way about things, now he wants us to think another way about those same things. And for me, I've realized that I used to be afraid of failing at the things that really mattered to me. But now I'm more afraid of succeeding at things that don't matter. It's especially key for those of us out there that were told we could do anything in life. I think that can get really overwhelming when you have a lot of skills and abilities. And it's really easy when you're good at most things, or capable or intelligent, to succeed at things that don't matter. And then it gets comfortable and easy. And since you're good at succeeding at that thing that doesn't matter, it seems like too much effort to change, to move into something that does matter. And I honor myself in this moment for being willing to continue to change, because I could have stayed in some comfortable zones, made more money or whatever, but I was like, no, this doesn't matter. It's hollow. I want to succeed at something that is deep in my heart. And I know you do too. I think that's the calling of everyone. And Bob Goff does such an incredible, hilarious job of capturing an incredibly deep, poignant point on professional people-pleasing and how to get your power back, but also just in general, and about how God walks us through these things to ask, who is your master? Who are you serving? And at the end of the day, it's not just like money or God, like a dude in a chair. It's about what's in your heart and the results you reap in your heart, how you feel when you wake up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night. And where we put our faith has more impact than we even realize. And there's more I want to read, but I'm going to go ahead and let it be. I want to do more mixed readings, but I'm going to have the bandwidth now, because what's fascinating, so I had this, I thought I had one intention at the beginning of this year. I had another one. I ended up being fired. This story was on my mind a lot. I didn't know financially how that was going to work out. And I thought I would have some sort of fail safes with, whether it's unemployment or I don't want to do anything legal. But then I realized, I really don't want to hold vengeance in my heart. The worst part about the situation is the feeling of toxicity around being angry and vengeful. Justice and vengeance do not belong together, even though we think we can justify vengeance. I get it now, having done the work on the vibrational feeling. I'm understanding a lot more about what generates what, and vengeance, I know, is not something that I'm into or want any part of. I want to give things over to the Holy Spirit, because I believe that through experiences like this, everyone will end up better for it. That's my ask. Everyone in the situation is better for it. And part of that is me not holding vengeance in my heart. So I'll just offer this to you at the end, because it's kind of cool. And so I've really been putting down that vengeance, but I was concerned about having to go through legal processes to financially protect myself, that it would maintain the toxicity and that feeling of vengeance. And another avenue for income was revealed that was unexpected, that takes all the pressure off of all of that. And I don't think I'll even have to engage in any of that. And again, I'm shown part of my fear of walking through all of that would be my fear of having to go through all this legal process and the unknown about, will you get approved for unemployment? Will they fight it? Do you need a lawyer? Blah, 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 blah. And all this, digging out all the details of this ugly situation. And I want to put it to bed. And just laying down all of that worry and the vengeance in my heart. And now an opportunity or a path has been created where I don't even have to do any of that. And before, I would have stopped to not take the action, to use my voice, to stand up for what I feel and do what I know is right, because I would be afraid of the financial impact and stuff. But when I made a choice to serve that alternate master, to have faith that it's going to work out and that I need to walk through this and it's going to be okay, and I'm able to hold a positive vibration, generally speaking, aside from the panic attacks, but generally speaking, bouncing back and stay relatively happy and positive, a lot more than I used to be able to. But actually, financial option that had none of that ugliness has been made available to me. And so I could not have known about that before I went into it. And if you study Abraham with me at all, you know that that's what Abraham says. You've got to take the action and then hold the right vibration, and then an avenue will be shown where it works out great for everybody, where I don't have to do harm to anyone. I don't have to take anything that I don't feel is mine, and no one owns me. And I just needed to have the faith to do the right thing, and then the avenue was revealed. But I didn't get to know about it beforehand, if that makes sense. So I just want to share that to say that God is so good. And I'm not talking about a specific God. Faith in all that is. There's so much love there, so much goodness for us. And over this last year, I've really shifted in my faith base of what that is, what it has to offer us, and what it means for us. This next year is going to be amazing. But I want to pause here and say, hey, let me share this story. Let me share how God's working in my life, that like this issue of that I really needed to work through this year of getting this piece of professional power, my power back in an environment where authority is there and wanting to do the right thing, but I'm inappropriately prioritizing some things. I worked a lot out in that space. I showed up when they didn't want me, and I did all of these lessons. And I reap the rewards of those. And all of them were to serve me and were kind and loving in their nature and designed for me in my life. And that is how our loving Creator works when we have the faith that it does. It is a complicated process to take ownership of your own thinking and generating your own results. But I have taught myself with this intention and result that the way I look at things and the way I understand them and the lens I put them under really impacts how I take them. Because if it's like I was trying and I got fired, that'd be devastating. But it was exactly what I asked for. And it's key that I know that it's what I asked for in order for me to feel good about it and not have shame. It was a positive result for me. And that can be with anything in our life. Sometimes failures all over, they're always positive, but can we put them in a way that it feels like it's serving us and part of our plan in our life? I guess that would be where I'm going. So anyway, with that, I've babbled on long enough. I hope the reading serves you. Love Does by Bob Goff, The Reach, Chapter 4. I love you. Thank you for being here with me. This would not be possible without you. And you matter more to me than I can say. So whether you're just stopping by or you're here for the day or the year, I love you. And I'm so excited for what we create next year. And I'm so grateful for what we did create this year.